Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of Banger Interviews. And today I have a very special guest, Mr. Tony Dolan, also known as the Demolition Man, uh, a member of Venom, Venom Inc, Atomkraft, and many other really awesome bands. A freaking living legend. So, Tony, thank you so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Well, hello everybody, and thank you so much for having me on Banger Interviews. And it's a pleasure to be here. I know we've been trying to do this for some time now, several months, and we keep our schedules kept misaligning, but at least we made it in the end. So, hi everybody, and thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's incredible to see you here. So it's really a dream coming too. So. We're going to talk about Tony's career and we're going to go in a chronological order. We're going to talk about Atomkraft, Venom, Venom Inc., and also some personal stuff about Tony's influences and all that. So, yeah, let's get
Sounds good.
right into it. All right, so the first question is so throughout your career, your two main instruments were vocals and bass. Which one came first, and why? Yeah, that you decided to play the bass guitar or sing, and who inspired you to pick up the bass as an instrument?
Well, great question. Well, I guess it was kind of I grew up in the northeast of England, and during the 70s, it was all glam rock and T Rex and Slade and stuff. And I never considered doing music myself. I'm from an industrial background. And, I guess myself and my other colleagues at school, we were predestined to go into shipbuilding. Like the rest of my family, they built ships, an industry of shipbuilding. And when I came towards I was about 9, and my mother and father divorced. And then my mother remarried and had my younger sister. I had one older sister already. And they decided to move us to Canada. So we went to Windsor, Ontario, where we had some family already. My uncle, my mother's only brother, lived there as a policeman. And so we emigrated to Canada. And we spent the mid part of the 70s in Canada. And when I got to Canada, I was introduced to Aerosmith, Kiss, Ted Nugent, Foreigner. But there wasn't a distinction between pop music and rock music. It was just all music. So nobody made a distinction. It was all rock music. Apart from country and western and soul, you had all that. But general music wasn't categorized. But I kind of fell in love with all that kind of sound. But still hadn't thought about performing myself. When we returned to England in the late 70s, punk rock had just began. And I guess my age being, 15, 16, that was kind of, that music spoke to me. I really got into the punk rock thing, Angelic Upstart, Stiff Little Fingers, the Sex Pistols, Sham 69. And there was a life to that, which I guess being a teenager, you want to express yourself. You have this amazing energy, and you just want to grab life and start eating everything and experiencing things. And I think that music revolution just was at the right time. It hit me so hard, and I just went to see everything I could, from Ian Junior Blockheads to the Tubes to Devo. I saw everybody, Buzzcocks. I was always at shows, and I was underage for some club shows. So I used to have a bunch of friends who were older. They would let me into shows. So I'd just go and get the shit kicked out of me at these punk shows, because the guys were like all these huge skinheads. And I just got in the middle, and it was like just this crazy feeling. But I'd go home feeling so happy that I'd released all this energy that I guess where I could have taken the wrong path and been in real trouble most of my life, coming from the area I did and the background I had. I found that I could exercise my anger or my stress or frustration through the music, and um, and that kind of made me think very differently. Because when I went to see Kiss, I went to see Kiss at Cobo Hall, or Aerosmith in Canada. in Detroit, you know, and but it was in an arena, and I'd look at these bands in an arena, and I couldn't do that because these were like, you know, they went on airplanes and they had tour buses and they were these untouchable beings. But when I went to punk shows in the UK, you know, not all of the musicians were very great players. The sound was kind of chaotic. The vocals weren't always in tune, but it was the energy I thought was amazing. And I thought I could do that. I could do that. So I guess my sister had it. My older sister had an old acoustic guitar, which she got given one Christmas in the 70s. Never really learned to play it. It had like 4 rusted old strings on it. And I said to my mom, "Can I have my sister's old guitar?" This was probably about 78 or so. And she said, "I don't care." So I didn't know how to change strings. I didn't have a pick. I just used to put records on, like the Police or whatever, and then try and work out what was happening. So I guess I was rudimentary learning how to play a guitar. And uh, and then one Saturday afternoon, I was going into town with a buddy of mine who I'd grown up with, and we started making up songs just for fun, lyrics and stuff. And then we said we should make our own band. And he said, "Okay, I'll play drums." I went, "Okay, I'll play guitar," and that was it. And we knew that his brother had a collection of guitars, and so that's how we started. Pots and pans in his mum and dad's front living room, and we used to take his brother's guitars when he wasn't in and just fuck around with them, and we kind of taught ourselves how to do it. And then we found other people at school who could play instruments who weren't in bands, and we said, "Yeah, we're going to have this punk band," and that's how the whole thing kind of manifested itself. And then so I was playing guitar, really rhythm guitar, and badly, of course, and singing badly, of course. Um, I was doing the undertones and all that kind of the skids and just singing all this like stuff. So it wasn't about tuning so much. As long as you could shout, it was good enough, you know. And we all thought, "Oh, this is so fantastic!" And it was an amazing release for us at that age. And then I went to a punk club. Well, I went to a punk show to see a support band who were friends of mine who I really loved, and I followed them all over. And they were opening for this other band I'd never heard of, and I got into the club free. After they played their set, I went back to hang out with them in the dressing room, and the singer Chaz said, "You should go and see this other band that we're playing with." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know who they are. I never heard their stuff." And he said, "Yeah, you'd like them because they're mental and just like you, they're crazy." And I was like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, but they're not like punks. They're like hippies. You know, they got long hair and stuff." And I was like, But he said, "Yeah, but they got a kind of punk vibe, but you're going to love them." So I think, okay. So I pushed myself back into the club. It's all dark. I forced myself to the front of the stage. And then I hear this sound. The band's about to come on. And it sounds like, to me, it sounded like some kind of vehicle, like a tractor or a truck. This, and I was thinking, what the fucking hell is that sound? And then boom, there it was. There was 3 people, bullet belts, black leather jackets, lots of hair, and it was Motorhead, and they were playing Motorhead. And from that moment, it just was like someone had just dropped a whole load of bricks on me. I walked out absolutely shell shocked. Went straight to rehearsal the next day, which was the Saturday. This was on the Friday night. Went on the Saturday and I said, "Okay, we got to be a heavy metal band." And they went, "What?" I said, "Yeah, we got to be a heavy metal band." And they were like, "But we're punk." And I said, "Yeah, but I just saw this band last night and they were amazing. And I have to get this bass guitar." And I didn't even know it was a bass guitar. I just said, "I have to get this guitar." So the following week, I dragged my mum all the way around Newcastle to every music shop looking for this bass that I'd seen this guy playing. And I was trying to describe it, and people were like, yeah, showing me all kinds of instruments, and we couldn't find anything. And then my mum said, "That's it, we're done. We're going home on the bus. It's all over." And I said, "There's one more music store. Can we just try the last one?" And she was like, "No, we've been everywhere. I'm done. Let's go." And I said, "Please, mum, please." And so she said, okay, the last one, and then that's it. I went, okay. So I went into the store. I said to the guy, I'm looking for this guitar. He said, "You want what kind of guitar?" I said, "I don't know. It only have 4 strings." He went, "The bass guitar." I was like, "Yeah, that's it, the bass guitar." And he said, "What? Do you know what it was called?" I said, "No." He said, "What did it look like?" I said, "It's a kind of weird shape. I saw a band at Newcastle University last night." He went, "Motörhead." I went, "Yeah, Motörhead." He went, "A Rickenbacker." I went, "Yeah." And he said, "I've got one, but it's secondhand." And I said, "That's fine." And we bought it. And
Wow.
I took it home in a cardboard box. I had no strings, no leads, no picks, no amp, nothing. I just held this thing like a baby, a newborn baby, on the bus all the way home. And when I got home, I just took it out the box, and I ended up, I think, cutting up a margarine tub to make like a pick, and I just put every Motorhead record on that week and tried to play everything he played. And that was how I learned to play bass. Lemmy, all of his recordings taught me how to play rhythm, taught me how to play the licks, and taught me how to approach the sound. And that was it. It was from then on. I just thought I want to do what I saw him do, because it was so powerful. It just spoke to me. I loved the punk element to it. I loved the idea that there was no rules. There was just this expression, and yeah, so I guess that's how I just decided that's what I'm going to do. That is what I'm going to do. That's what I meant to do. And the option that I had was go into industry, work in the shipyards for my whole life, probably get some kind of cancer from the products, drink beer every weekend, eat bad food, die young, or I could take a risk on music and maybe make no money, but certainly at least I would die happy. And so I chose that option. I think that moment for me was the beginning of everything, all extreme music. At that point, it was like, wow, nothing has sounded like that before. This is it. This is the moment, and boom, it all happened from there.
And vocal wise, because you have a really unique style, especially the way you form the words in your work with Venom. You can really feel that. So, uh, which singer inspired your vocal, or was there anyone
Well,
actually inspiring?
I guess I liked the coarseness of Lemmy's voice, but I couldn't. You couldn't mimic it. I couldn't copy it because I didn't know how to, for a start. And if you ever heard Lemmy talk to you, that's how he sounded. So you're copying how somebody else actually sounds. And also, he was unique. So trying to copy a vocal style is okay, but what it does is it takes your personality away. You're not yourself, you're somebody else. And I don't know why anybody wants to try and be somebody else when why you're not good enough. Of course you're good enough. You are you. That's the whole point. Bruce Dickinson doesn't sound like Diano, didn't sound like Blaze Bailey, doesn't sound like, um Ozzy didn't sound like Dio, and so there it's the individuality that works. So I thought, because I'd never been trained vocally and I just kind of fumbled my way into it, um, I just kind of developed the breathing, and then I took some voice lessons to go, how do I change pitch and how do I control the voice, and just so I could get a bigger handle on how do I use my voice to express the songs. So yeah, it's like when I sing old Venom song, if we play shows, we don't choose to do certain songs on the set. We go with what fans ask for. If a fan asks for a song and we can play it, then I think we should play it because the fan deserves to hear those songs live. But I will put the same emotion into a song I wrote, a song Mantis wrote, a song Kronos wrote. If we're playing a song, I will be in the lyric. I will be the lyric. I will be the song. Because if it means something to me, it should mean something to someone else. And so I have to believe what I'm singing as being real in that moment. And I guess that's probably why, some people meet me off the field and go, "Oh, you're a bit different than I imagined," because, and it's like, well, there's a distinction, you know. When you go to play, I don't know, soccer or football or cricket or whatever the sport is you do, you're the same you, but you put your uniform on, you go out as your team. Now you become somebody else. You're this, and you're performing as a sportsman. And I think it's the same thing when you put on the Demolition Man. There's a distinction. Tony is more approachable. He abides by the rules, and he tries to listen and tries to accommodate. And the Demolition Man doesn't care. He doesn't care about your rules. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care. He just is there to do what he wants to do. And that's the difference. So when you take that on stage, it gives you the freedom to believe anything you want to believe. And, in a society, in a world where every hour of every day you have to conform yourself, you have to go to school now, you have to go to work now, you have to have your lunch break here, you can't park here, you can't park there, you can't go in dressed like that, you can come in but not until then. If we get the chance to go to a concert and you have an hour or 2 hours where there is no rules, you can just be you and do whatever you like the way you want to do it, that's liberation. And that was the whole idea of punk rock. That's the whole idea of extreme music. So it's not about champagne bottles and white linen suits and all of that nonsense. It's about freedom of expression for people who need that expression. It's freedom, and that's what's so wonderful about it. But so
Right.
that's why lyrically it needs to be real.
Yeah, I agree with every single word of yours. Even though, you mentioned Sex Pistols, I gotta say, I've never been a big punk fan. Obviously, it was, different back in the day. But
But
I really love classic rock and metal. I'm really into those stuff. And you mentioned the Eagles, and it's pretty funny because, I'm a big fan of that type of stuff. So I love, Chicago, I love Boston, Smokey, all these bands. But Eagles, I never got them actually.
well, no, I mean, but I think that's a thing. I think it's like you can like I was a huge Iron Maiden fan, with Paul Di'Anno. The first album I thought was amazing. I saw them with Judas Priest. I hung out with them, and it was like, wow, fucking amazing. And then I saw a band called Samson. They weren't particularly my type of thing. I didn't like that vocalist because I didn't like that style of vocal. I liked a bit more punky vocal, which Paul had. And then Paul, gets fired from Iron Maiden, and they're going to get a new singer. And I'm like, oh, wow. I wonder who they're going to get. And who do they get? The guy from Samson. I'm like, no. So, but uh, were they massively successful off the back of Bruce? Yes. Have they made a huge career and done some amazing things? Of course, undeniably. Am I a fan of Maiden after Paul? No, not because I'm prejudiced against anything. It's just I like the sound then. I don't like the sound now, and that's fine.
So Atomkraft was a speed metal, thrash metal pioneering kind of new wave of British heavy metal band, late new wave of British heavy metal. Uh, but you were in the new wave of British heavy metal scene in England. What was it like to be part of that movement? And how did like the big bands like Tank, Diamond Head, Satan, all these bands influence you?
Well, they weren't so much influences because they were contemporaries. We didn't get to put the album out until 1985, by which point it seemed like we were late in the race. But we actually had begun in 79, so we were recording all the way. We just didn't have any money because we didn't have jobs really. So we didn't have any money to go to studios, and also there was no internet. So how do you approach a record company? Nobody teaches you how to do that. So we didn't know. We did demos. We did lots of demos, home demos, rehearsal demos. We had all kinds of stuff recorded. We had a friend we used to go to. He was in a club band and he would record us, but once we had recordings, we just took them home and listened to them. We might play them to friends, but we didn't know what to do after that. Then I discovered tape trading. So then I started to trade tapes and stuff, and I became aware of, the movement throughout there. But Neat Records, which was the home of Satan, Raven, obviously Venom, was literally in my town. It was like 20 minutes from my house. So, that was an obvious place to start, when I went there to do demos. And we went there to do some punk demos in the late 70s. And funnily enough, when we went in there, we went to inquire and could we have a look around the studio. This was just before we changed the name to Atomkraft and became a heavy metal band as such, or a speed metal band. And we went in there and the guy said, yeah, if you go upstairs, there's an engineer. He can show you around and explain things. So we went upstairs to the studio and there was this young, very pretty young boy called Conrad Lant who showed us around the studio. And it was just before Venom. And, so the whole scene was growing out of that. Everybody I knew at school, or at different schools who went to pubs, to the rock nights that we had all the time, because you had Saxon and Girls School had come through, Angel Witch, Tank, of course, Motörhead. So this whole thing was moving in the UK, all up and down the UK, the Midlands, Sheffield, Def Leppard, Diamond Heads, all of that, Holocaust in Scotland, so you had this whole movement. And everybody wanted to be in a band or go to clubs and see bands play. And so the whole thing was just moving, and we were just another one of them. But we knew that what we wanted to do was we didn't want to be like the others, and we just were dirtier, and we just wanted to make it more angry. Like if you could take Motorhead and a band like the Dickies from California, who were like the ultimate speed punk band, and if you put those two things together and shook it up, what would that look like? It would look like some too fast, dirty, loud, just noise thing. And that's what we liked. So all of our stuff was kind of aggressive and noisy. It's probably why, the whole thing with Venom spoke to me immediately. Although we didn't take the satanic thing that they took, we were more nuclear, which was a big thing in the 80s, the whole nuclear disarmament thing. So that was our theme, was nuclear power and war. And Venom took the satanic thing. But in the same way, they didn't want to be like anybody else. They just wanted to be uglier and darker and more, obscure. And then that whole reasoning spoke to me, because that's where I was coming from. Don't conform, don't be like somebody else. That's what the punk movement had taught me. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to sound like, Celine Dion. You don't have to be able to play like Yngwie Malmsteen. You just have to know you want to say something and go and say it.
Uh, I definitely agree because Future Warriors, it has always stood out of, that's why it's hard to categorize it, new wave of British heavy metal. It was part of the movement, but it was just like Venom, but in a different way. It was basically so unique that you couldn't, categorize it into heavy metal or just heavy metal. So it was extreme. It must have been extremely influential because it was the time when thrash was started, coming out, basically started to evolve. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. By the time the album got finished, it was slightly different sounding than how we'd been before. The lineup was slightly different. I had a different drummer and a different guitarist there. And so the sound was slightly modified to a degree because they were better instrumentalists. So, but stylistically, it looked like we had kind of come in a bit too late. But originally, back in the day before the whole explosion of thrash and extreme music, people would hear it and say to me that you're too too futuristic, which is where Future Warriors came from. You're like too far away. Like, you know, you're not where the scene is now. Maybe that's where it's going, but you're not where it is now. And that stuck in my head, and I thought, but isn't that, if that's the future, then shouldn't we be moving towards something like that? But I think that we were too different in many ways at the time. And by the time that we managed to get a record deal and put a record out, we were too late because everybody thought we were just another band on that scene, and we weren't particular. Those songs on there were proto thrash. They weren't thrash the way Metallica, Exodus, you know, Dark Angel, all of that stuff was. It wasn't death metal like Possessed or Death. And wasn't satanic like, you know, Satan or Venom or Angel Witch. So we were kind of this oddball that was kind of playing this proto thrash at a time that thrash had exploded. And but it was because our egg, let's say, had been laid too long before, you know.
Right, yeah, you can definitely see that on the record. It's but yeah, it's still an amazing album. So
Thank you, thank you.
it's a freaking great record, and I'm gonna ask about Atomkraft just in a few seconds. But first, I want to ask, like, because you know you mentioned Venom, and it's funny because later you will join the band. It's crazy, and
Yeah, yeah,
so you know, and you know they released Welcome to Hell and then black metal uh,
classic,
uh, around that
classics.
time. So were you into Venom back then, or yeah?
Yeah, well, the we were all kind of from the same place, really, and of course they were Neat Records, where Conrad used to work. Kronos used to work as an engineer. Oh well, he was a studio helper, if you like, gopher kind of guy. And Mantis was going out with a girl who lived literally across the road from where I lived, so I would see him all the time. And my girlfriend had a friend who was going out with a guy who was in a band, which was Cronus. And we would go to the same pub. So I'd see everybody. And it was Mantis's girlfriend's younger brother who played guitar. And he used to come and jam with me and my guitarist, my Atomkraft guitarist. We'd all jam stuff. And he came in this day and said, "Oh, you know Jeff, my girlfriend's, my sister's boyfriend. They're going to make a record." And we were like, "A record? How? How are they going to make a record?" They said, "Well, you know, the studio that one of them works at. They said they're going to put a record out." I was like, "No way!" And I remember the day that In League with Satan 7 inch went out, he came straight to my house and went, "You gotta, let's listen to it." And we put it on and we listened to it, and I just lived like an angel. I mean, obviously In League with Satan was like, whoa, this is cool. But Live Like an Angel, I just thought, oh my God, I fell in love with that song. And it's still one of our favorite songs that we play. I love that song. I love the way it feels. And yeah, you know, to actually, because Dave and Neat Records had put them on a compilation cassette, which I had, Lead Weight. So I heard the early demos with Clive Archer, who I also knew, and he was the original singer. And kind of you know, you talked about the vocal style. Actually, if you listen to those original demos and then listen to Welcome to Hell, that's Kronos, but it's actually Clive's voice. So he kind of, because Conrad wasn't a real singer when he did it. The first song that he was going to do was Live Like an Angel. And that was because they wanted Clive would go off and get changed into this makeup to come on and do Schizo. So they always had these ideas of stage showing. And while he was off stage, they would play Live Like an Angel and Conrad would sing it. But he'd never kind of sung before. So that was his thing. So I guess he took Clive's style and made that his own, you know, from the early demos. But yeah, so I heard that, and that was it for me. You know, then Malcolm said they were going to make an album. I was like, no way. And so I went to Neat Records, got in with Neat Records because Raven were my favorite band, one of my favorite bands at the time. And I used to get the bus sometimes with John Gallagher to John and go and see them play whenever they played. Um, with another friend who's a huge fan, and yeah, and so I remember going to Neat Records just to talk to them at Neat Records, and Dave Woods gave me my first copy of Welcome to Hell. When it had just been released, because I was going, yeah, I heard the Venom thing and the 7-inch, and oh my god, it's so amazing, and I love it so much. And he went, oh, we've just printed the album, they've just come in. And then he said to Sue, who was the secretary, go and get one of the Welcome to Hell albums, the Venom albums. And then he gave it to me. And I was like, no way. So I went straight home, put it on. And from Sons of Satan to the end, that was it. I was sold.
Do you still have it?
Oh,
That
yeah.
record?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I still have it in my collection. Yep. And,
Wow.
it's not only was the album influential and classic, drawing, the front cover was taken from Anton LaVey. The logo design was taken from the artist who did, from Roger Dean, who did Asia and all of that. They just took elements of his design and made it into a logo. The whole idea of the priest vomiting and the shot on the beach, the black and white shot. I mean, even those photos, I turned up at my girlfriend's house, and we went to visit her friend. And she said, oh, my boyfriend was down, they were down doing a photo shoot today. And, and I'm like on the verge of being in a band properly with doing music. And I'm like, a photo shoot? Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, this sounds so rock and roll.
I got this poster. I don't
Ah,
know if maybe
there
that
you
one.
are. There you are. Yeah, it's a Time Mouth. A Time Mouth, which is just on the coast from us. And, those shots, that was their photo shoot. And the back of Welcome to Hell, where they're on the beach with the axe, those were all shot then. So she showed me those and lots of others that he had given her from a photocopy machine. And when I picked them up, I was like, oh my God, that's the guy who, that's the guy. It's, oh, fucking hell. So you realize that, oh shit, they're all in the same band, So there was this whole magical thing about that, just magical, But again, keeping the album it meant at that particular moment, it meant so much to have that because, this showed, and this is the influential thing with Venom. People can knock how they played, they can knock that they weren't the best band, or it was noisy, or the album was like this or like that, or the grotesqueness of the whole thing. But I think rather than people copying Venom, and a lot of people did copy Venom, but the explosion of the scene, whereas Metallica are more Diamond Head than Venom, of course. And subsequently they can all reach out and find their starting points and their influences. But what Venom did was they showed me and all the me's all over the planet, the James Hetfields, the Dave Mustaines, the Gary Holtz, the Kerry Kings, the Schmears, the Tom Warriors, the Batteries. They showed everybody, the King Diamonds, that we could do that. Before that, we couldn't do that. Toto could do that. Supertramp could do that. Queen could do that. Led Zeppelin could do that, but we couldn't do that. We're just mortals in our
Yeah.
bedrooms, in our mum and dad's bedroom with a guitar. But Venom showed that once that record label had put them out, that platformed everybody to go, anybody can do it. If you want to do it, just do it, because they're doing it. I think that was more their influence than just the sound, was the fact that they showed that you could just want to do it and do it big, and you can do it.
Yeah, it's too bad you guys, Atomkraft couldn't get the record done or like released by that time because it would have been,
Different. Yeah, yeah,
basically the same but different. So I mean,
yeah.
as influential as Venom were. But so talking about Atomkraft now, so you guys split up during the 80s, and then you joined Venom, but if I'm correct, you reunited in 2005. Is there any chance that we would, or we one day we would get another Atomkraft record?
Well, you know, I've been working on an Atomkraft album for about 20 years now. And every time I got so far with it, I kind of reworked it and redid things. And then once Lemmy died, um, I thought, you know, I should finish the album. But instead of trying to evolve it, I should go back and start again and just do it the way I did it the first time, or the way I approached it the very first time before Future Warriors, and maybe even at Future Warriors, and make it just a basic piece of me, of us. You know, how we were. Just we didn't consider things. We didn't try and improve things. We didn't try and polish things. We just played them. And if we played them and we liked them, that's what you got that from our shows. So it was an energy that we were enjoying ourselves so much. That was all that was important. And so, you know, we had a lot of judgmental things because of that, but it didn't matter to us. You know, I mean, Tom Warrior famously says that Hellhammer got the worst review in Kerrang in the history of the magazine, uh, for their first demo, I guess. But he actually was wrong, because that first review of Hellhammer got 1K, I think, or half a K. And you would get 5Ks was a good review, and it worked from there. But Future Warriors was famously given 0.1K by Kerrang. So I think we tipped him to the post for the worst ever review. But it was a Mark Putterford wrote the review, and it was a fantastic review. But it made us laugh because we didn't take that stuff seriously, because it wasn't going to stop us. Much like now, much like when I joined Venom, you know, for every accolade I got, there was a million, you know, people wanted to throw mud at me. And that's changed, of course, over the years. But I still get that from time to time. But it doesn't stop the machine from going. You know, when you want to do what you want to do, it's not important what somebody else thinks. They can do what they want to do. You know, you should do this, you should do that, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. Well, you do those things. You don't do those things. I'll do what I want to do. You do what you want to do. And that's how we live our life. We're not here long enough to please everybody. So yeah, I think, you know, those whole points about Atomkraft, and doing an album. Yes, I want to do that. I mean, in 2005, I did do a show which I was invited to do, and I did make an EP. And every year, someone would ask me to play a show somewhere. Every year, um, and you know, I'd love it to happen. The original band, it's impossible. The Future Warriors lineup is also impossible. Um, but you know, I'm still alive, and while I'm alive, and Atomkraft meant everything to me, because it's where I began. So I'll play all the songs somewhere at some point. This the show's supposed to be the end of this year. There was South America supposed to be last year, possibly this year. But now I've got my handle on the album. I will complete the album. So I'm looking at now. We thought maybe the end of this year or the beginning of next year to have that released. So yeah, I just want to get it out now, and have the album that I began 20 years ago finished and out. So that would be good.
If you release that album, I'll be the first one to listen to it. It would be, it would be
Good.
so great to hear a new album. But all right, so we're kind of going, in a chronological order, as I said in the beginning. So uh, Kronos leaves Venom in 88, around something like that, after Calm Before the Storm, that record. And
Yes.
then you join. How did you join Venom?
Well, we done the final Atomkraft tour. At the time, we didn't realize it was going to be the last tour, but it was 88, and we were behind the Iron Curtain. We were on a tour with Nasty Savage from Florida and Exuma from Germany, and it was going really, really well. Um, we had expanded, so I was back to playing rhythm guitar. We had Ian Swift, who was Avenger, but was with Satan in the early days, and as a vocalist who did Queen of Death and Conductors of Noise. We had Darren DC Rage, who just stepped in to finish off the Queen of Death EP. but wasn't on Conductors of Noise. But we brought him back so we could thicken the sound and I could play rhythm guitar. Of course, Rob and Jed. The tour went really, really well. We sold out houses. I mean, it was amazing. It was really working. So when we came back, we had demos for the next album, Atomized. They were kind of rough, but they were in good shape. Some of the songs were great, and we were out of contract with Neat Records, so there was approach to some new record labels, which we thought we could get, maybe Music for Nations, and then at the end of that tour, the singer, Ian, decided he wanted to quit. He fell in love with a girl who lived in another city and he said, I want to go and move there. I think there was something going on and it was to do with me. I'd obviously done something on tour, or they hadn't been happy with me, I guess. Maybe I was taking the press and they felt that they were just as important or something. I don't really know. Nobody ever honestly sat down and told me what was going on. But the guitarist left on stage while we were playing a show in Scotland. He just got off stage and went to the bar and got himself a drink, and that was it. Didn't come back into the band, so I had to cover all the stuff on the guitar. So at the end of that tour, it was like that was it. There was me and Jed, and then we had an extra bassist. And Jed wanted us to look for another singer, or maybe I could go back and we could stay get a guitarist and go back to being a three-piece. But I kind of thought, this started in 1979. It's now nearly 1989. That's 10 years. I'm a bit tired now of this. And I think I might need a respite. But the person on the tour who was tour managing was Abaddon from Venom, because they'd been managing us, him and his business partner who managed Venom, Eric. And on the final date of the tour in Poland, Abaddon came to me and said, do you fancy doing Welcome to Hell tonight for the fans? Because nobody'd seen Venom in Poland, hadn't seen Venom. Abaddon was there. So I went to the Polish band on the bill, Wolfspider, and said, do you guys know Welcome to Hell? I could play the guitar if you guys can back me up. Yeah, and Abaddon will come and play drums and I'll sing it. So we went on stage and we played that. Everybody went nuts. And then we finished the tour. That was it. I was considering Atomkraft. And 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the management who asked to meet me in a pub. So I go down to meet them in a pub. They tell me that Calm Before the Storm didn't do so well. It wasn't that well received. The label wasn't that happy. Kronos has now left and taken the two guitarists. He's relocating to Boston for 6 months. He's going to do his solo thing. And so that's it. And I was like, oh, shit. And then they said, so we need a bass vocalist because we have a record deal with Music for Nations to make 3 albums. So I was like, okay. And I thought they were asking me to think of someone. So I'm like trying to think, well, there's this guy, he's pretty good. I don't know what he's like singing, but he plays good bass. There's this guy's a great singer, but I don't think he plays an instrument. But after ages, they were just laughing. And then they went, you. And I was like, me? And they went, well, listen, Atomkraft is in this pause position. You know the band, you know us, you know all the songs, you play bass, you sing. I mean, who else could do it? And I was like, wow. But I said it was on condition that we got Mantis back, because I said, I don't see how it could work if we don't have a Mantis, just with Abaddon, I mean, just with Kronos, just with Mantis. But if there's 2 of the elements, fantastic. And I said, me and Jeff work so well together. We bounce off each other so well. He's kind of like my brother. So yeah, if Jeff would do it, I'd say yes. But they said to me, we've asked Jeff. He said no. But I said, okay. So they said, would you talk to him? So I talked to Jeff, and he basically said, well, if you do it, I'll do it. And I said, I'll do it if you do it. And that was it. We were off, and started making the album, really.
Prime Evil is kind of going back to the roots record. I
Yeah.
mean, both the artwork is similar to Welcome to Hell, the
Yeah.
colors and everything, and the style is the sound as well. It's basically a reborn. So was
Yeah,
that the band's intention when you were asked to join, or it just came along as you joined?
absolute intention. You know, the what they had said to me, the management, Abaddon and Eric Cook, who was the manager, had said that, you know, they realized from Possessed, but certainly on Calm Before the Storm, they had lost their way. And they said, you know, we need to find our way back to what you know it was about. And that's why they asked me, because they said, you know us from the beginning and the intention and the start. So, you know, who better to kind of try and take us back to that feeling, you know? And my approach had never changed, you know, maybe because I hadn't had their success with their band in the same way. And so, you know, it hadn't changed me at all. I certainly had never had any money. So I just still owned one guitar, no equipment. You know, I spent most of my recording life and touring life with no equipment, borrowing from people. You know, so I never had the money. So I only had the intention, the intent, and the belief in what I was doing and the love for the music. So I guess they wanted me to reevaluate. So, you know, the whole idea of Primeval, even the song Primeval lyrically, was prime the first evolutionary plan. You know, now we were at the end of the 80s where this whole explosion of extreme metal had happened, from Cryptic Slaughter to Metallica to everything in between. And so where was the prime moment? You know? And Evil, of course, you know, inherently connected to metal and rock music. So that was the impetus, you know, an evolutionary plan, you know. The first instrument, the first key note, instrumental point that the explosion happened, you know, the prime moment. And that's what, to me, and to many, Venom had been, because they'd kicked through the wall first, you know. That fourth wall, the industry wall, they hadn't been manipulated. They just punched their way through and went, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. You know, and everybody wants to tell you, you can't, but they did, because you can, you know. And that's what they proved. So that was the whole impetus there. And to, you know, take the punk elements, you know, I wrote Parasite and Insane and Black and Other Priests and
Great
Carnivorous
song.
with well, thank you. And it was with that feeling that those songs, you know, the Seven Gates of Hell, In Nomine Satanis, you know, all those songs had given me that vibe, Sons of Satan, that, you know, it's like anything could happen. It's like, you know, I always used to say that Venom was like you know, I know they've said about themselves, but for me, it was like Venom was like a bus full of people driving, but you didn't know what was going to happen. It may get you there. It may just go off a cliff. It may smash into another. You just didn't know what was going to happen, but you knew something was going to happen, you know. And that was the excitement, you know, not knowing. And that was the excitement of their shows and the excitement of listening to their music. It was just, you know, chaos in the most bludgeoning way, without any care about it. That's what it seemed. And so I wanted to have that. Of course, musician wise, we were more controlled, we were more experienced. So you get something a bit more cohesive. And that's the difference between the early stuff and the later stuff. There's more cohesion there, but that's just because of age and experience and musicianship and all of those things. But the emphasis, the nugget, the energy cell, the core of the engine had to be that unbridled feeling of like of that power. And so that's what I was going for on that, you know. And we got the results from it, you know. And I think at that point, you know, people were, well, they can't be Venom now because there's no Kronos, and you know, how's that going to be anyway? And they were, those albums, the early albums, the first two in particular, were so influential. How could you relive that again? And then we put Primeval out with the same emphasis, the same feeling, the same, you know, identity, if you like. And people were shocked, and we got 5 stars across the board, and the album sold really well, and we went on tour and sold out shows, and people were like, oh my God, you know. So I think there's a realization, you know, that a band can progress themselves, but they can progress themselves into where they lose their identity, and you end up with a Lulu or a St. Anger or something like that, you know. Whereas, you know, you can then go back and do Death Magnetic or what Metallica is doing now and go, you know, it's the same band, they're just different feelings you had. You know, a 16-year-old person screams and shouts at everybody, um, um, not in a considerable way because they don't know everything. But a 26-year-old doesn't shout the same way as a 16-year-old shouts, and a 36 or 46 or 56. You know, each decade teaches you more stuff, so that you end up, I guess, when you get to our age, you end up discussing your points rather than just screaming at people, you know, because you have more information now. And so you can have a conversation. And that's kind of like what we had to get back to. Where's that scream? What was it we were angry about? What were we trying to fight against? And that's the identity of Venom. And, you know, and people have asked me before, you know, why would you go into that, you know, because it was such a force majeure, and, you know, you were putting yourself in that position. But I didn't consider that, you know. I thought, these are my friends playing music that I love, and I get to play the music with them and sing those great songs. Who doesn't want to do that? What if, who wouldn't want to do that? Of course you would. So it's like, I didn't consider that it was somebody else. I didn't try and be him, because you can't be. That's who that is. This is who this is, you know. And so I just try and give the songs the meaning that I got from them to the fans that want to hear them. And, you know, for anybody who would go, uh, um, you know, in a complimentary way about us, the original, or would have said something negative, the same people stood in front of us when we played Bursting Out or Dead of the Night or Lady Lust, losing their minds. So at the point where you're actually doing the music, they don't care. It's just afterwards, you know, they go, yeah, but, you know, it wasn't the original and that. But they've just been there for like an hour and a half, losing their minds, singing every single song. So it's like, at the end of the day, it's about the music and not necessarily the characters. So it's not about being better than what went before. It wasn't about. It was about consistency, flying the flag for that. And, you know, in if those two albums, Primeval from 1990, 89, 90, and Welcome to Hell, or Black Metal from 81, 82, if they're like this, you know, matched as far as these, that follows those, then that's amazing that in 10 years of separation, we managed to do the same thing again and have the same kind of responses, you know, when it was like, you know, it was a long time before when it first had come to the surface. But that was what it was about, to show the consistency, much like it is now with, you know, Kronos goes and does his festival shows, you know, and there he is playing the stuff, and it's like, okay, it could be good, it could be bad. Some shows good, some shows bad, some shows with all the bells and whistles and some without them. But it doesn't matter. It's the fact that people can see him, who was that voice, from then doing it. You know, that's what it's about. You know, a fan should have that opportunity.
Yeah, and then after Primeval, you would go on releasing Temples of Ice and then the Wastelands.
Yeah.
Out of those three records you were on, which one is your favorite, and which one was the most fun to make?
Well, I think Primeval, simply for the fact that it was the first one. We were very into it. We were very excited by it. and everything was done correctly. The other two albums, I think the Temples had some great material on it. I don't like the production. I don't like the artwork. I think that there was lots of politics going on. Financially, we never got paid for anything anyway. But I think there was lots of stuff that were corners were cut on the album that weren't cut on Primeval, and that was a shame. And I think it got wasted. And I think that the Wastelands, by the time we did the Wastelands, I'd done kind of majority of the writing on that. I mean, I did a lot on all of them, Temples included, but I did a lot. There was, I think, Mantis's interest after Temples was waning, and he wasn't into the politics, or he needed to earn money, and we were starting to question lots of things that were bad business going on. And so we just continued, and I brought Steve White, my guitarist from Atomkraft, in to the original Atomkraft, to just come and help me out, because Mantis couldn't come because of work. He couldn't come down and work on some of the material. So I brought Steve in, and then Abaddon said, well, we'll just get Steve to record guitar for that song because he knows it, which we did. And then it ends up being, oh, now Steve's in the band. But Steve was never in the band. Steve was only in the studio to lay down guitars, which Jeff was going to then come in and redo. But Abaddon just kept the tapes and they mixed it in. And so again, I think there's some really great material on the Wastelands. I think production could have been better. It was better than Temples, but it could have been as good as Primeval. I think we should have had Nick Torba for all three albums, so they were consistent. I think we should have been more involved with the artwork for the other two albums. On both of Temples and the Wastelands, we didn't see them until they were finished. And we didn't like them by the time they were printed, but they were printed. So what could you do? It's already done. So I think it became about short-term goals financially for the management and not long-term goals for the band. And I think by the time we came to the end of the 3-record deal with the Wastelands, with Martin Hooker and Music for Nations, I decided I needed to do something else. And I didn't. The idea had been to keep flying the flag of Venom as high as we could. And at that point in the early 90s, we had grunge, we had Britpop happening with Blur and Oasis, and then we had grunge coming over from America, Pearl Jam and Nirvana. And so the whole map of metal had changed. And I just thought, we've weakened ourselves now in the face of the industry changing, and also these weaker produced albums with not so good artwork. And I just thought, I don't want to kill Venom. It shouldn't be killed. So there's no point flogging it to death. There's no point just doing it for money, which I wasn't personally getting, but for them, they wanted to continue. And I just said, I think we should leave it as it is. And then if there's another period later where it can be revitalized, then so be it. And of course, in 96, that's what they did. Kronos came back from America. Not his solo thing hadn't worked very well. He'd only had a temporary visa. He returns to England. I'm not there anymore. They get a shot to do Dynamo, and they do the Second Coming, which was great for 5 minutes. They did a couple of albums, and then it all blew up again. But that's Venom. That's Venom for you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you how the name Demolition Man came. All right.
We were playing a show. And in those days, when you played shows, everybody did a solo. So you'd have a drum solo, then a guitar solo, a bass solo. And that's what we did, because that's what bands did. And we were playing this show. And it was time for me to do a bass solo. And I ran across and jumped up onto a platform and started to play the bass solo, but there was no sound. When I turned around, my new guitar tech, bass tech, had wrapped my cables around the amp. So when I jumped, I pulled the whole stack over. Everything exploded. There was fire coming out of the amp. I just blew everything up, and they were like, got fire extinguishers, and everybody was running around, and I'm standing on this table like with nothing to do. And I was like, shit. So I jumped off, and as I jumped off, my guitarist, Steve, from Atomkraft went to the microphone and just pointed at me, went, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Demolition Man," and that was it.
Wow, that's one of the
Yeah,
best stories I've ever heard actually. So that's
yeah.
really really cool. All right.
And then through I swear to God, throughout my life, when anybody lends me something, they go, "You'll not get it back in one piece," because he just destroys everything. I don't know what it is, but I usually break everything. And
Wow.
so yeah, my the bass sponsor I have now is Boel from Holland. And the first bass they brought me into a show in Holland said, "We'd like you to try this," and I said, "It's beautiful, but I won't use it." And they went, "Why?" I said, "Because I'll break it." And they went, "No, you can't break these things. Trust me." And I said, and my Mantis went, "Trust him." He said, "Oh my God, trust me. He can break it." And so I took it on stage, and when I came off, I handed it back, and they went, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's great. I love it. Yeah, I'd love one." And then the next day when we left, they messaged me, went, "Fucking hell, you broke the toggle on." I said, "Yeah, sorry." And they were like, "How
Wow.
did you do that?" Because I'm the Demolition Man. But
Wow,
again, it's
that's
part of that extension. It's part of the extension on stage, not to care, just to be free for a moment of your life, just to be
right.
free. If someone walk on stage in Mexico and they go, "This building is strictly from the federale police. You cannot smoke in here, Tony." I go, "Okay." The first thing I do after the first song on stage is light a cigarette and smoke it. What are you gonna do?
All right.
It's like, wow. And I'm not being an asshole. It's like, hang on, like if this was any other time, I'd actually adhere by the rules. But for one moment of our lives, can we just not have this rules?
Yeah.
You know,
Punk
that's it.
influence. And
Yeah,
there's the punk. Yeah.
freedom,
Uh,
freedom. Yeah.
right. If you had the chance to go back in time and change something about your musical career, would you change anything? If yes, what?
I don't think I would. I mean, you know, I, I have, I've been very fortunate and unfortunate. You know, uh, met the most incredible people, played with the most incredible people. Some who love me, some are my brothers, some hate me. I don't care anymore. But uh, everybody that I've played with in the bands has been amazing, and some amazing generosity. And it was just a wild ride, a wild, wild ride. So the journey I took to get to where I'm now, content in my musical being, needed that journey that I had. So if I went back and changed it, maybe I'd be living in a Twin Peaks like Metallica or Malibu or something, and you'd be rich and you'd be playing Glastonbury and getting private planes everywhere. And maybe some people like that. I know Mantis would love to have that. But for me, that's not who I am. I did movies in Hollywood, and the reason I stopped doing anything in Hollywood was because I realized that that's not who I am. Maybe it's for somebody, but it's not for me. And people go, "Oh, that's bollocks," because you don't want to be famous in movies and make loads of money. It's like, no, I don't. I'm quite happy who I am. So I like doing the acting, but the bullshit you got to do, you got to put yourself through for that. Is it worth it? Well, we're back to the being a millionaire again. I wish I was a millionaire. Do you really? Because you would have to sacrifice so much to become a millionaire of your life. So by the time you became a millionaire, if you didn't do it when you were in your 20s, maybe you'll have sacrificed too much, and I'm not prepared to sacrifice life and people for just money because, there's better things in life to have.
Right. And another interesting question about your kind of personal life. Uh, what's the most surprising fact about you that most people don't know?
Wow, that's a good one. The most surprising fact that people don't know. Uh, I have three nipples. I don't. But I don't know. A surprising fact that they don't know. Well, I once played. There's some a candy. here, some chocolate, some sweeties, candies, however you want to call them, and they're called Magic Stars. They're made by Cadbury's, I think, and they're chocolate, little chocolate stars. And I did when I was starting with my acting to get experience, I did a thing which was kind of pantomime, which is kind of every Christmas they do these pantomime things. And I did one of those, but it was traveling around schools, and I was part of the troupe, and I played this evil mayor of this city, of this town in Jack and the Beanstalk, you know, for these kids. But during the show, there was a bit in the middle where we had to promote the chocolates to the kids. And so we had to do a dance routine, and somebody had to be dressed as a giant chocolate star. And that's what I was. And the best thing about it was I'm not a dancer, and I couldn't say a goddamn thing. So I spent, you know, the whole of the thing trying to stand up and falling over, and the kids loved it. So yeah, so that's probably my secret thing. I did play a giant chocolate star for a whole season in a pantomime.
Wow. It's like it's pretty
Yeah,
funny if you think of it, like, like one day you're playing at, like, a big show, singing about Satan, all that, and the other day you dress up as a
yeah,
chocolate.
you're hidden inside a foam star. Yeah, if the kids and their parents only knew what was going on inside. Yeah,
Wow. All right. Yeah, that one definitely was super
yeah.
surprising. So, all right. The final question is about to come. It's one thing I always ask from every musician I interview. Is there an underground rock or metal album that you would recommend to the people watching this interview, uh, if there's any?
Actually, give me 2 seconds. I'll be back in a second. And I'll show you the one I want to recommend right now. Now, and I mean, I could recommend a million things because I get so much great music all the time sent to me. But this one I just got today. Um,
Necrodeath, is it?
yes, from Italy.
Yeah, Italy. Ahaha.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is a Sunset cover. Now, this is their new record, done by Time to Kill Records, who I work with in Italy, and it's called "Singing in the Pain." If you can see,
Yeah. All right.
so it has a Sunset cover. But what they did was they have this is based on A Clockwork Orange. So all the songs are based on the movie The Clockwork Orange, and of course they're friends of mine. But they asked me, would I be able to narrate the songs? So I got to be Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange, and I did all the voices on the narration on it. And that's not why I'm recommending it because I'm on it, but I am recommending it because it's they just did a superb job. They did a superb job. So yeah, if you can do it, look, it's in
Wow,
actually,
nice.
yeah, I got the CD, but this is the vinyl version, which I just got today. But yeah, that's Necrodeath from Italy. It's on Time to Kill Records, and yeah, it's a superb album. I got to say, it's superb. Um, so yeah, if you can go out and get that, it's
Wow,
they did it. They did an amazing job, but it's all like a Clockwork Orange.
nice.
Um, yeah, and I just loved it. It's amazing. They've done amazing work.
Yeah, Necrodat, I'm familiar with their old school 80s and 90s
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Great black thrash. I like their stuff, so that's awesome. All right.
brilliant.
So, and the final question. So before we end the interview, I gotta say it
Yeah.
was a pleasure. It was a phenomenal experience hearing all these information pieces of information. Uh, so before we say goodbye, what's your message to all the metal, rock, Venom Inc, Atomkraft, Tony Dolan fans out there?
Well, just to say thank you. You know, you know, when you begin a journey as an artist, particularly as a musician or as any other artist, you know, you want to communicate. You know, you want to say something, but you want to communicate, and you know, for everybody who likes you, somebody doesn't. Uh, but you're just trying to connect with people. But I've been all over this planet many, many, many times. I've been flying and playing since the 70s, early 70s. And I've been very fortunate that the music has taken me everywhere. And I met the most amazing musicians and people in the most amazing countries with the amazing foods and the welcoming that I've got and the support that I've got. It is incredible. It still blows my mind. So, you know, to everybody, you know, thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for support. But beyond just me, thank you for supporting Atomkraft and all the people who were involved in Atomkraft, because it's not, nothing's ever a solo project. You know, thank you for the support for Venom from the beginning of those guys to everything through me to Venom now, Venom Inc. It's all one family. You know, yeah, there's inner politics. This one hates this one tomorrow, and then he loves them the next day, and then they hate each other the next day. But that's just, you know, that's family, isn't it? That's what families do, you know. Nobody wants you for Christmas, and everybody wants you for every holiday. So, but for you, for the fans, it's about the music. It's not about somebody bitch slapping somebody or somebody arguing. It's about the music, and if the music speaks to you, there's meaning in it. And if you can get an opportunity to see Venom Inc. playing those songs, but it's not your preferred lineup, you know, just think about, are the songs worth the value? And will you hear them live? Just come and let yourself go. Close your eyes if you have to. Don't look at me if you have to, you know. But just be part of it, because it's about the music. That's our connection. That's our brotherhood or sisterhood or theirhood. Or it's music which brings us together. It's music which drives us forward, and it's music which saves us. So that's all you need. That's all you'll ever need. But be confident in yourself, be strong in yourself, and remember, when someone says you can't, you can if you want to. It's not up to somebody else what you achieve. It's only up to you. And I believe in you. You know, if I can do it, you can do it too. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony, for the especially for the nice words at the end. So it was amazing. Thank you. Long live metal.
Absolutely, long live metal, and support banger, banger everything.
Yeah.
Support this guy. Support this guy. It rules.
Thank you. Thank you
See you
very much.
soon.
Ah.
Thank you.